I've got a pitch story.
Okay.
Remember how much John loved to play pitch, of course. And when he was in the nursing home in Columbia, just the two of us, I took a deck of cards out to the nursing home and I said, John, let's play pitch. And he said, you can't play pitch with two people. We played two-handed pitch for 5 months, almost every day.
Yeah, I know.
And he loved it. I'd walk into the room and he'd be sitting at the table sometimes with the deck of cards already dealt out.
And that's great. Yeah, he loved playing pitch.
I remember Judy saying to him one time when they were home, and maybe they were just dating then, and we were all playing pitch around the dining room table, and Judy made a play that John didn't like, and John said something kind of angry about it, and Judy was calm, cool as a cucumber, and she said, well, John, everything I know about pitch I learned from you.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart. Were Bill, John, and I the only ones that played Shostkov? You didn't play, did you, Trace?
No, Bill did.
Well, Daddy came home and he wanted to play Shostkov. I was 8 years old. He set us down and taught us how to play Shostkov, even three-handed Shostkov. So Mom wouldn't play. So we four would sit there and play Shostkov.
I don't think she played cards at all, did she? The Kavanaughs played rummy, 500 rummy. That was their game, and the Eliases played Shostkov.
Mom did not.
I don't remember Mom even playing rummy.
She wouldn't play with the Eliases.
When did we start
And
playing
I don't think she played with the Kavanaughs either.
I don't know.
When did we
She
start
played
playing
pitch one time. Spillman's came across and played pitch one afternoon with Mom and Daddy Bill. I remember it was a Sunday afternoon. They came over and played pitch there in the dining room.
And Mom played.
Yes, Mom and Daddy and Harold and Reva.
Ah, I didn't know that.
So she just didn't like to be corrected. You know, the Eliases, why'd you play that and all this? She didn't want to be bothered.
I guess that was it.
Yeah, want to be bothered.
The Eliases were competitive, my goodness.
Oh, golly. Remember Grandpa Elias slapped those cards on the table up there? Bang.
And their cards were always curled, weren't they?
Right.
Like fists. Yeah, John was, I was staying with John up at the house one time. This was the last, maybe a couple years before he died. And I think he was going to down to see Alan, the trip he did for Alan. And I came down to use the bathroom, and it was about 5 in the morning. I had no intention of staying up. And John was all dressed and ready to go, and was sitting at the kitchen table. And he said, I went by him to go back upstairs, and he said, let's play pitch. So we played pitch until it was time to go to the airport.
Oh, cool.
I thought the Kavanaughs taught us how to play pitch.
It came from the Kavanaughs. I think you're right. But I don't remember when we started playing pitch. It was sometime after I left home. I came back and you all were playing pitch. So I don't know when you started playing.
The only time I saw pitch played in the house was when the Kavanaughs would visit. And Daddy would play pitch with them.
But
when I was younger, the Kavanaughs would play rummy. Anybody remember rummy?
Yes. Did they play 500 rummy or?
500 rummy, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Remember Bernadine
I thought it was 500 pitch. I don't know. Was rummy and pitch two different games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was gin rummy that played to 50 points, and I don't remember the other rummy, if it went 500 or what.
Well, there was one of them where you had to go out completely. You had to get a run or pairs, and you had to have enough to completely go out, so you wouldn't have any leftovers.
Yeah, whatever the score was.
I think that's true.
Yep.
You were gonna say something, Mary Kay, about Bernadine.
Bernadine taught us how to play bunco, remember? Rolling the dice. That was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the older generation be visiting and everything, we kids were bored. It was always Bernadine. She was more like a kid than anybody to come and entertain us and tell us a little moron jokes and then play bunco. She
Yeah.
was a dear.
And paint your fingernails and toenails.
Yes.
And have you
Go
put,
wading in the creek up there
Yeah.
at her place.
And then driving their little Ford tractor. Remember how she'd take us out in the front yard by the pine trees and have us driving the tractor?
Mm.
And Bernadine was a dear.
Was it Bill or John who had the Jack the pig?
John.
That was John.
And how come he had a pig?
We
That was-
always had pigs.
No,
Yeah,
but it was
that was a
pet.
runt of something. We never had red pigs. Remember, it was a red pig.
It was a red one.
And Uncle Bill or somebody gave it because it was a runt. And he had to nurse it for a while. Remember him nursing it with the milk bottle?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so he was really attached to that. Jack was attached to John and John was attached to Jack.
I remember Jack going after the dog once because the dog came over toward John
Yeah. He was
And
protective of John.
and Jack took out after the dog.
And Jack had a second life as Chuck's pig.
Really?
Don't you remember?
I don't remember that.
In,
It
in
wasn't
later
Jack.
years, John conflated the stories about your pig. Did you have a
Oh.
name for your pig?
Yes.
Into Jack. You know, when we were sleeping in the front yard
Mm-hmm.
under the blanket at night in the summer when it was so hot, and the pig would get out and come. In later years, John remembered that as his pig
Mhm. Made a better story.
sleeping with us. Yeah.
That wasn't the only story that John put himself in.
But it was, John had come home and he came home from a date and went upstairs to the West Room and it was too hot. So he came down and came outside and crawled in with the four of us and all the dogs and the pig. And so when the priest and the women from the parish came around to the south door the morning, it was John's legs that they saw.
With a pig. Mhm.
And mom was sure Father Damien thought it was Daddy. He had booted him out.
He got put out of his.
The ladies were trying to get how many heads of cabbage we could give for the church picnic to make coleslaw.
Right.
Does anybody remember the pig we had that the sow had laid on and it couldn't use its back legs?
Yeah.
And it would run, it would use its front legs and drag its back end.
Right. Uh-huh.
And it would follow us everywhere we went. It could run about as fast as we could, sliding its black legs.
I don't remember that
It
pig.
wore,
Before
and
my
it wore
time,
calluses on its back.
Daddy used to get spotted Poland pigs,
Yeah.
which were they were fatter pigs. I remember his spotted pigs, and then in
Spotted
later
Poland
years,
China.
Mhm.
yeah. And then he got later on, didn't he get? Oh, he got Durocs, didn't he? The ones with the white.
Hampshire.
And was that what your pig was, Chuck? Didn't he have a white around his shoulder?
Yeah, those were Hampshires.
Hampshires.
Yes. Yeah.
That was
Durocs
the
were
cutting board in the kitchen, remember?
Yes.
Cutting board in the kitchen shaped like a Hampshire pig.
Mhm.
Yes.
Now,
Didn't Uncle Chris make that? I think he did.
I thought Leo or Allie made her.
Oh, maybe so.
I don't know. That's in Basel now in the kitchen.
Is it?
Mhm,
That's neat.
Wow, yes, we saw it there, didn't we?
mhm.
I'll travel pig.
Mhm. Well, do you remember how we used to get John ready for a date?
Oh,
Clean out his bathtub, wash his car, shine his car all up, shine his shoes.
iron
get
their
ready for a date.
shirts. He learned that from his big brother, Bill. Iron my shirt. Run the
Yeah,
bath
that
water.
started with Bill, and the tradition continued.
But
Right.
John would often give you money for doing it. And I don't
Oh, I never
remember,
got any money.
yeah, I don't remember either of the other brothers ever tipping me, but he did.
They're behind on their bills.
The interest has really grown on it.
What was that, Dorothy?
And the interest on it has grown. They can't afford it now.
Most disgust that I ever got with John was over hay bales. Remember the old Dodge truck? We would take it across the road where the hayfield, Cafferty's, or whatever you wanted to call that, Chapman's. And whoever's legs could reach the clutch and the brake got to drive the truck in the hayfield. Well, at that time, little Chucky's legs were long enough. So, and you always had to go the hottest day in July or August
Mhm.
because you couldn't bring it in moist. They would get mold in them, had to be dry. So we'd go
And it had
across,
to be the heat of the day too.
right? And so we'd go out there, and those bales weighed 50 to 70 pounds, didn't they? And John would tell Treese and me, okay, I'll get up on the truck and place them so we can get them all on. And Treese and I would take those hay hooks and pick up those bales and throw them up on the bed of the truck.
Dorothy and I did that later.
And kind of mad. And here John was stacking them. He had the easy job.
Yeah, he had the easy job. You know, I remember the one time we were over across the road at the place where where Walmart is now, and we were putting up hay, and they had the old hay rack, and it had been turned into a trailer, and it was pulled by the tractor. Anyway, John would drive it, and John went around the corner too fast. We were up on top of it,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
turned, he was going downhill, and he turned too short, and the whole thing went over, and we went flying off. I think it was Chuck and me, went flying off of that hay rack onto the ground.
Did hay come down too?
Scrambling out of there. And I remember seeing Chuck come. He was scrambling as fast as I was. And John looking very innocent.
I guess.
Treese,
All the hay bales were back on the ground.
I think it was loose hay.
Was
Was it
that-
loose hay?
I thought it was
Yeah.
loose hay.
Might have been.
I
I used to marvel at Daddy stacking the hay and how he would stack. He was always on top, and we would pitch it up to him, and how he would stack that loose hay. He knew exactly where to put it to keep it and to make it. I don't know. It was a way they piled it to keep it from, you know, from falling out. Just thought it was pretty amazing. And then watching him back up to the barn. Remember when he would back the horses up to the barn, to
Right.
the window?
Uh-huh.
And he would get it perfectly there, the way he handled those horses, and got that hay rack backed up to the barn window.
Mhm.
And then he would just pitch the hay in the window. I thought that was always such a marvel, getting those horses to back it just right, and they were right against the barn perfectly. It's a real art.
Yeah, that was an art how to handle the crops. I don't know if any of you ever remember how the wheat was handled. Uncle Bill had a binder that would make little shocks of wheat, and then they would go along and take those shocks and put them together in those little stacks in the field.
Right.
And then the threshing machine would come. But in the meantime, they'd take the hay rack and take the bundles out of those little tiny stacks, and they would build a stack of wheat bundles maybe 20 feet high, and they would shape it and put the stems to the outside so that it would drain water. So it was waterproof when they got through.
Isn't that
And
amazing?
it was shaped so that it was smaller at the bottom, then it went out, and that provided kind of a little porch so the water wouldn't get underneath, and then it tapered into a point on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of an art. One of the farmers specialized in doing that. The rest of them would be helpers.
I always thought they looked like little huts.
I don't remember that.
Roy Myers had a threshing machine, and he had a steam engine tractor that drove it with a big long belt. Remember the hammer mill our dad had and the long
Yes.
belt to drive it?
Daddy was so proud of that.
Yeah, that's kind of like the threshing machine was, only it was a steam engine.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So did they put wood in it to keep it? How did they get the steam? Coal?
Not coal.
How did they get the steam?
It was wood.
Yeah,
It was
everybody
wood.
was wood in those days, Dorothy.
A lot of the early trains used wood.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you remember watching the steam engine? Seeing it? Bill?
What? I didn't understand.
Did you remember seeing his steam engine running?
Oh, yes, I do. When I remember seeing it was in a field right across the road from the orphan's home.
Hmm.
I don't remember when we were at Donovan, but I remember I was the water boy, and they gave me one of those porcelain gallon jugs with the gunny sack on it to keep it wet and cool. And they had one of those stacks in the Colgan field. And I remember the farmers all came with their teams and hay racks, and they all worked to toss that hay off of that 20-foot tall stack onto their hay racks and take it to the threshing machine.
Ah.
But I don't remember the threshing machine at that time. I don't know if it was there or they took it somewhere else or what.
Hmm.
But I do remember the time at the orphan's home when I was going to town with our dad and we stopped to see them working.
Oh. Hmm.
That was out of the way to go to town. I guess he knew they were over there.
That was a very big thing to move. A steam engine and a threshing machine.
Yeah, they'd move it and let it set and bring the wheat to it from, I guess, farms all around.
Hmm. It was pretty labor intensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, they worked together. That was the big thing. Being neighborly.
I was reading Ann's book about their lives and, everything was labor and how they went to the river and cut blocks of ice and stored it in sawdust. It's amazing the things they did and the way Grandma preserved meats and would put lard on and turn it upside down to seal it. But it's just, they were busy 24/7 is all I could think,